CyberArk is at the forefront of demonstrating how identity security can help prevent and block a ransomware infection before it brings a business down. CyberArk offers protection along every aspect of the attack chain, from the initial intrusion all the way through data exfiltration. Whether you are proactively building your security program or need to restore trust in your IT environment, CyberArk has the experience to help. Learn how at securityweekly.com/CyberArk.
Picture your team being able to map out the external attack surface as it grows and see the same attack vectors as a hacker does. Most tools out there do asset discovery, but stop there. Enter Detectify. It takes an inventory of exposed web assets and automates vulnerability testing for security misconfigurations, expiring subdomains, and risks in third-party software. Here's the cool part. They crowdsource payloads from leading ethical hackers. It finds bugs you actually want to fix and finds them in time. Start a free 2-week trial by visiting securityweekly.com/Detectify. Go hack yourself. Attacks can't be prevented, but they can be stopped. Modern cyber attackers have already made it inside your network, but you have the upper hand. Find and eradicate threats with ExtraHop network detection and response, and shut them out before real damage is done. Learn the advanced techniques attackers are using and how ExtraHop stops them with a live attack simulation. Register at securityweekly.com/ExtraHop. That's extra HOP.
Welcome back to Enterprise Security Weekly. Join us on June 29th for a webcast with Tyler Robinson and Bo Bullock to learn how to pivot into the world of crypto security. Visit securityweekly.com/webcast to register with only your name and email. Don't forget to check out our library of on-demand webcasts and technical trainings at securityweekly.com/on-demand. Also, don't miss any of your favorite Security Weekly content. You can go to securityweekly.com/subscribe to subscribe to any of our podcast feeds and have all episodes downloaded right to your phone. You can also join our mailing list, Discord server, and follow us on social media and our streaming platforms. And it never hurts if you want to leave a review there somewhere. That always helps us out. All right, this interview is sponsored by Deepwatch. Bill Bernard joins us today to talk about accelerating response. Bill currently serves at Deepwatch as the Managing Director of Solutions Architecture and is a seasoned expert with over 20 years of experience. Welcome to the show, Bill.
Well, thank you, Adrian. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, so it's, I don't know, maybe a little background. Deepwatch is still a fairly new company, I think, maybe 3 years old now. 4 years old at the most?
Yeah, the name's only about 3 years old. We announced it to the world. 4 years. Where does the time fly? But we were incorporated in 2017. Announced the name to the world actually 3 years ago. See, I'm already doing my math poorly. But we are a managed detection and response company offering these managed security services in a little bit of a different way. We think that you solve for detect and response with people first, supported by great technology, and with a plan for maturing not only ourselves and how we deliver those services, but helping our customers mature their security operations programs over time. And so that's what we bring to the market.
Yeah, and it's been a huge space in the past. I'd say 5 to 10 years. I think. For the first 20 or so years of InfoSec, we were just so focused on prevention, and had absolutely no plan for action when something got past it, when something got inside. Like maybe you had an incident response plan, maybe you've done one test before or something like that. I think PCI requires you to do one test a year, but most folks are deer in headlights. It's very emotional. I was a chief incident handler for about half of my career on the enterprise side, so for about 5 or 6 years. And yeah, it's rough if you don't practice at it, if you're not prepared for it. And now we're finally. It's interesting if you've ever seen Sunil use cyber defense matrix. It's just a grid that on the y-axis it has like infrastructure, devices, network, data, people, things like that, identity, and then across the x-axis, it kind of goes through the whole flow, like identification, preparation, me see if I can get all this right: detection, response, and recovery. So you got those 5 stages. And it's interesting because one of the things that people do with it is they kind of plot their security controls on it, see where there are gaps, right? Or
Hmm.
plot their vendors on it, see where they've got gaps. And once you get to that, and you've got the what we call left of boom and right of boom. So that moment when an incident happens, you've got preparation. Just on this side. I'm gesturing with my hands for folks who are just listening to the audio only version of this. We have a split. Like, some people will watch the video version, some people watch the audio version, but there's some very intricate hand motions going on here. So left of boom is before the bad thing happens, and right of boom is the bad thing, and right of boom is just like a ghost land. Just ghost town. Nothing in there. No controls, no products, until maybe 5 to 7 years ago we started to see products and MSSP and MDR services started popping up like crazy, and we finally got to that point where everybody's like, okay, like I think we're ready now.
But there's still that vicious cycle, right? We don't have enough people in InfoSec. And so we're going to find a way to solve for that with technology and product. And I tend to think even today, in that $77 billion a year industry that is product in InfoSec, the vast majority of that is still protect based. And I think that as people realize they don't have the people that they need for their security programs, because let's face it, last year there were about 1 million people in cybersecurity in the US and about 600,000 job openings, depending upon whose stats you want to look at. Either we need to grow by 60% people, or everybody changed jobs last year. Not sure which. I'm sure it's somewhere in between. But we really continue to try to solve with the band-aid of another product and another product. And you're right, there still aren't products, to my way of thinking, that make detect and respond really work well. I think part of this is the Lego set versus erector set problem. I would suggest that a lot of the protect tools are a little bit more like a Lego set. Really easy to put together and run by comparison. You can make beautiful things
Yeah.
with it. There's step-by-step instructions for how to build that beautiful thing. But detect and response is more like an erector set. If you don't know how to use a wrench and a screwdriver, you're going to have a hard time putting it together. And let's face it, it's just pieces of metal and screws and nuts. And if you don't have a vision of what you're really trying to build, you're never going to be able to build it. You're never going to be able to maintain it. And I think a lot of the detect and respond tools, SIM, SOAR, XDR, name them, those are all erector sets that require even more time and effort from people to actually make work well, because of all the things that they're supposed to be able to do and all the ways they have to be able to be customized for a manufacturing company's environment versus a service provider versus a healthcare provider, et cetera. They just don't, they're not like my front door lock, right? Where the only maintenance that door lock as a security tool requires is maybe I oil it every 5 years.
Mm-hmm. I'm going to suggest a tweak to your metaphor there, though.
Please.
Like, I do like the Lego thing. Like, once you kind of set it, you forget it. It downloads malware update, pattern matching updates, machine learning models, whatever. But on the other side, I guess I kind of think about like detect and respond tools, kind of like kitchen utensils. Like, you can get some really fancy kitchen utensils, but you're still making the dish.
Yeah.
Like they might help you make it faster, less chances of burning something, keeping track. Like, we've got our Bluetooth grill temperature sensors now. Like, it'll, when you're inside watching the game, completely forgot that you had something out there, like your phone will let you know. But yeah, so the items that require almost no human control, like you take it out of the freezer, put it into the microwave and go, aren't going to be very good. And then there's some space there in the middle where, like, some gadgets and some tools help you do a better job in the kitchen. Some just end up getting in the way. Like, they're not even worth the trouble. They take up too much counter space. You used it once, and that air fryer's just sat there ever since.
Well, let's take that another step. Some of them, like a salamander, are really, really useful in a restaurant, but you wouldn't want to buy one for your house.
What's a salamander?
A salamander, that's the overhead broiler that they
Oh, okay,
use
yeah.
for
Oh,
good
with the
steakhouses and things
track.
like. Yep.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
The conveyor belt. Yeah, yeah. It's
Yeah.
what we used at. I used to work at Papa John's, and yeah, you just 7.5 minutes. It just goes through the conveyor belt, and
Yep. So
you
that
grab
tool
it on the
maybe
other
is
side.
great
Yeah,
at a Fortune 100 company that's got a
exactly.
security team of 2,000 people. But down here at the 1,000 employee to 10,000 employee mark, you can't even use that thing. You just don't have the ability to use it.
And it's one of my big pet peeves about products in general. I used to liken it. Here comes another metaphor to like back in the old days when you buy video games and software at stores and you check the back to see if your computer had enough RAM to run it, a fast enough processor, a good enough video card. Tell you specifically like here are the requirements. So you don't get home, realize you can't run it, and then
Mm-hmm.
you end up bringing it back to the store. I see so much of that happen in infosec, where the skills and the labor available at the team, even if they have the budget to buy the tool, they don't have that Fortune 100 staffing. Like they really needed 2 or 3 more FTEs to effectively use that product, and the company let them buy it anyway. And it's bad for everybody, because then they tell other people this product sucks, when it's not really a fair shake to the product because it wasn't designed for a security team of 3 people,
Yes.
and
Yes. I mean,
but
that's where, you know, as an MDR company, we're dealing with SIM and SOAR every day. We're dealing with EDR and XDR and stuff. And I can't tell you the number of customer conversations I walk into and it's, oh, we have a SIM platform, but it's shelfware because we
yeah,
couldn't send the guy to any training. The guy left after 6 months who was trained. Uh, the out of the box alerts don't mean anything to me. All of those things that they just, they can't go it alone. And I feel like the old man in the first cave link visits who's just trying to say it's dangerous to go alone. Here, take
yeah,
this, right?
yeah,
You need help, and we're here to help.
yeah. We need 7 custom parsers to get all our internal application stuff and our weird off-brand IT product to get the
Or
logs in there. Yeah,
or we figured out how to deploy stuff into the cloud, but we have no idea how to monitor the cloud. We got
yeah,
good at monitoring the firewalls and the Linux boxes. I mean, that's all just syslog, right? Yay! But how do we get the logs from AWS? Oh, I don't know.
yeah,
So much fun. I mean, we're seeing that customers want to deploy these tools. People want to deploy XDR, and yet almost half of folks that we surveyed recently in companies 1,000 employees and bigger said that they have to keep delaying an XDR rollout because they know they don't have the people to do it with.
yeah.
They don't have the
Mhm.
ability to make use of it, and that always makes me sad. I'm in infosec because I believe in it. I'm in infosec because I think it's a valuable thing. Cybersec, excuse me, I'm old. I still call it infosec. Uh, and I hate seeing companies go, I can't do this thing that's going to provide me better detection, that's going to help me remediate faster, going to help me not be the next Colonial Pipeline. Happy anniversary. And they say, oh, and I can't do it not because I don't have the budget, which most of them don't anyway, but I can't do it because I don't have the people. And that's something that we just have to solve for. It's just going to get worse unless we really make some strides there.
Yeah, I actually gave
What?
a talk a few years back. Sorry, go ahead, Joe.
Oh,
Yeah,
sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Um, but what a lot of people don't realize too is a lot of these companies they'll buy the tool regardless. I mean, they'll buy the tool before they even POC it. Somehow they do that, and then they find out, oh, we needed 4 people just to build out this tool, and the vendor kind of misrepresented their technology by telling us it takes 1 person to run it.
Joe,
They didn't
please,
tell us
none
it
of
took
them would
4
ever
to
do
deploy
that.
it.
Yeah,
as somebody made their numbers. Somebody got their commission.
and if you don't go into it understanding the outcomes you're trying to get and what it's going to take to get to those outcomes, yeah, you're risking the program. And I hate seeing that happen. It happens all too often. Plus, then what happens is the employees that you have get frustrated and They go find somewhere else to work, and now you've got one less employee, two less employees, three less employees on what, a 15, 16, 30 person team that you can't recover from that, and it just becomes that avalanche. Um, Another thing that just blew me away that I found out recently is almost 40% of companies 1,000 employees or over don't even have a 24/7 monitoring team. It's 2022.
Wow.
And they don't have a 24/7, not even an outsourced 24/7 team.
Mm-hmm.
That blows me away when we're trying to talk about detect and respond. At that
Yeah.
point, you really are assuming that 16 hours a day, protect is getting it done, and you only need to detect and respond 8 hours a day. Hokey smokes.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I mean, the only reason there aren't more breaches than there already are, and I think this is less the case now than it used to be, but generally they're just, it's a target rich environment and there's only so many bad guys, like they're just not finding time to get to all the low hanging fruit out there. Because I do advisory calls with a lot of companies, and I still talk to companies on a weekly basis that still, their IT still operates where no one installs a patch unless security makes them and pushes them to. So they
Yeah.
wait for security to come to them
Oh yeah.
before deploying all but the most egregious, like top of all the headlines, drop everything patches. And it's a lot of companies still. I talk to 20, 30, 60-year-old companies that are starting a vulnerability management program for the very first time.
Mm-hmm.
That happens all the time too. It's like, how'd you make it to here? And the answer is they're not very visible, right? Like they're just not. I guess
They're
to the
lucky.
attackers, they're not
I
attracting a
mean,
lot of attention yet. Luck,
right, and
luck and
the thing
chance.
and the thing that we all learned last year is your data is valuable to you.
Yeah,
Whether it's valuable to anybody else, that means I can hold it for
yeah.
ransom.
I
If
used to
it's
hear that
valuable
all
to
the
you.
time as a pen tester. Like we don't have any PII. Like nobody cares about. Well, and my answer back then to that was, do you have a bank account? Because back then the trend we were seeing is attackers would come in, find credentials for their bank account, and wire money.
Mm-hmm.
Using their online bank account services out of
Some
their bank account. So yeah, you've
sometimes when
got
I'm
something of
feeling
value if you've got a company.
sometimes when I'm feeling extremely cynical, I think, well, maybe they're not attacking the companies directly because they're having enough success with spoofing the CEO texting you, asking you to go get gift cards somewhere. I don't know. that's me maybe being a little too cynical, but yeah, that all amazes me. Just how many of those we get all the time. Everybody's figured out who our CEO is, and if I don't get 4 or 5 of those a week asking for gift cards for him, it's a slow week.
Yep, we've gotten those at CRA also. We've you get them everywhere. So you mentioned a stat. I understand you did a very interesting survey, and I'd be interested to hear what other insights came out of that survey, because
Yeah,
that's always interesting. I've done a lot of surveys, and this topic in particular, I think, is one of the more interesting to
yeah,
see how people are
we
doing stuff.
surveyed companies of 1,000 employees and more, looking at where they think they stand with their capability to detect and respond. And we found, as I mentioned, almost 40% of them don't even have a 24/7 detect and response capability, whether that's outsourced or not. One of the other things that we found was that even the ones that can detect and respond to an event in less than an hour, which is kind of the benchmark everybody's been using lately, even they really want to speed up their detection and their response. 93% of those who were surveyed say that they still want to improve their detect and response, even though more than 40% of them could detect and respond to an event within less than an hour. So we're
Mhm.
seeing that many companies are recognizing that they need to do better even with an hour, because they're recognizing that malware can do things in an hour. Ransomware can own you in minutes to hours very, very quickly. So that was a very interesting thing to see, that that's still top of mind even for the folks that can get things done in about an hour. I was also Also impressed to see that security professionals, I love to see their need for continuous improvement. 85% felt that had they had better detect and response capabilities, they could have actually resolved instances long before they became problems. And that is still top of mind for folks. Nobody's sitting back and resting on their laurels. So there were a few of those things, but I was also really excited to see that people are starting to realize that they're going to need to outsource more and more of this because of staffing, because of everything else. And almost 71% of folks who are thinking about XDR, not just endpoint, but full XDR, where we can take action at your authentication solution and at the firewall and at the endpoint, are realizing that their strategy is going to have to include outsourcing because they don't have the bodies for this. And so, thank goodness there's a robust group of companies out there that we're here to try and help them with that. But real change for me from not that long ago, back when I was in the industry, when I was a practitioner at a company and things along those lines, that the attitude was, nope, nobody sees it but us, right? I'm glad to see that changing. I'm really hoping, frankly, that we can be more of a community in InfoSec. It still feels like when InfoSec people get together, they don't want to share stories. And
Yeah.
I don't know if accountants are like that. I don't know if doctors are like that.
No,
but
I mean,
InfoSec people certainly are.
if you look at any industry that cares about safety, be it, maritime accidents, reports are public, airline, aviation incidents,
Mm-hmm.
public, traffic safety, at least highway related stuff, that's all public because we need to learn from all that to improve.
Yes.
And without those details, with all those, and it doesn't matter if it's anonymous, like we don't need to know the name of the person that caused the accident, or was involved in the accident. We just need the details of how it happened, how the injuries occurred, the things we need to know to learn from those mistakes, and to build on that. So it's one of the most frustrating things to me too. Like even the regulation we're seeing on incident reporting is just time based, has
Yes.
nothing to do with the details of what gets released. But if you look like, you know, one of the only times we get real useful details are when you've got like a really transparent company, usually some kind of startup cloud first company, just opts to share the details. Or you have a case like Equifax where there's, like a House subcommittee investigation, and the results of that investigation become public, or some kind of class action lawsuit, and the mandate report becomes part of the case, which is public. And
Or
in those,
that whistleblower, right? That's the
or a
other one.
whistleblower or
And
something.
and and can you trust the info from the whistleblower? Sometimes gets a little, that gets a little
Yeah.
tough.
Yeah, I mean, really, you want everyone cooperating with it, because one of the things, like I give a whole talk on a postmortem of how Equifax, how that breach happened, because there's a lot of misconceptions about what they did wrong and how it happened. And one of the things that makes that report so great is you get a sense of what the culture and the atmosphere was like at the company when it happened. So you actually get quotes, like full emails and direct quotes from different people in the company talking to each other, so you can get a sense for whether they're frustrated with each other or angry about something. Like you get a sense of those relationships between them. And so much of these breaches are just how the experience of the people there, how good their processes are. Like when I looked at Equifax, almost all the failures were process failures. Like they owned all the products they needed, they had all the people they needed, but they didn't know what to do when bad stuff happened. So like the
Didn't know what
common
to do when
misconception
bad stuff
is,
happened. Probably didn't know how to figure out when something brought up on one solution needed to be correlated with something that brought up on another solution to recognize the bad thing happened as well, I imagine.
like they produced a snort rule, a custom snort rule, just to detect if Struts was being hacked. And they handed it off to the production team to deploy it to the IDS. Nobody tested the rule to see if it worked or not. It didn't. So nobody ran the code before they pushed it to production, in other
Yeah.
words.
Yeah.
Another case, yeah, they had a an SSL inspection system that had gone something like 18 months with expired certificates, that hadn't been updated. So it was
Hmm.
non-functional for a big chunk of traffic hitting it. The moment they updated those certificates, that's how they actually found out they got hacked.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
I
That
mean,
within an hour of updating those certificates. So their products, their systems worked when they were maintained, when they were properly used, when people were trained on how to use them.
yep.
So we
I
need more of these examples because I don't know. I suspect that probably wasn't a one-off case, but
No,
we need more data.
goodness, no.
It's
But
anecdotal.
there's also the company structural issues. I'm going to harken back to Colonial Pipeline because, to your point, congressional testimony is a great way to find out a bit about what actually happened there, and
Yeah,
and they had to do that in both the House and the Senate. And one of the things that stuck with me a year later was their CEO, and forgive me, I haven't memorized his name, but their CEO made a statement that I think he thought was fantastic, and his
he can
statement
be
was,
anonymous. It's fine. It doesn't change the story.
I'm paraphrasing here, but his statement was, "Our board has never denied our CIO security funding when she's asked for it." And that told me three things. There's no CISO,
He's passing the buck.
he's passing the buck, and the board was not actively interested in InfoSec. They were a passive member on that InfoSec conversation. And that tells me that that's an entire company that at that time, and there's plenty of signs that they've changed their tune, but at that time, that was a company who was in the "it ain't going to happen to us" camp of
Yeah,
InfoSec. We don't have any data anybody would want, right? They and to think again in 2021 and 2022 that there are major companies with more than 1,000 employees that are still structured that way is just disheartening. Um, and I look at that and I go, so how are those folks ever going to get to a point where they can detect and respond to what's going on?
yeah, and it's that's one of the reasons, I think that and many other things we've seen the SEC proposing a rule that requires boards to reveal how much cybersecurity experience there is on the board. A lot of people read that as like requiring experience to be there. It only
Hmm.
requires them to reveal how much cybersecurity experience is there. Because again, the SEC is concerned about investors understanding the risks
Yep.
and not having any at this point, in this environment, this landscape, not having someone, waking up in a cold sweat at night thinking about security problems at a high enough level in an organization is a risk.
So that's the SEC's rule. Now, what is DHS going to require? And what is Homeland?
Mhm.
Well, DHS is part of Homeland Security, but right, what is the next department going to require, and the next department going to require?
Yeah.
When are we going to
We're
recognize
getting
that
there.
we need to
We're getting there.
centralize, right? We need to normalize this stuff back out a little bit, not have each federal government department have their own requirements. But yeah,
Yeah.
it's so amazing. I think back to the what was it, the Computer Security Act of what, 86,
The
that
CFAA?
yeah,
Yeah.
the
Computer Fraud and Abuse Act?
that's right, thank you, that the DOJ just finally said, yeah, we're not going to go after folks doing legitimate research.
We're,
Oh
we're
well,
going to talk about
phew,
that in a news segment, actually.
right? So awesome, that's great. So what happens when there's a new administration? Could we do
Right.
something about that law that's
Yeah, because
still kicking our butts 40
yeah.
years
What
later?
form did that take? It was like a pinky swear.
Right, exactly. Honest, we promise. Scouts
Yeah.
honor.
Yeah, it's a pinky promise that they don't always keep too.
Oh,
Yeah.
picky. Yeah.
Yeah. No,
Um,
that's a concern. Internationally, it's a concern too. Like, anything the U.S. says or does, that can be undone by the next administration. They're like, yeah, I will believe it. Like,
yeah.
if it stays that way for, a decade or two.
And
But
right, one of the best ways to kickstart detect and response is always finding out from somebody who's doing legitimate research that you've got a problem. And so that's a positive step. I'm thrilled to hear that. And again, just out here trying to make sure that everybody has the ability to have that 24 by
Mhm.
7 detection and response, and everybody has, whether they can do it themselves or not, a way to get to that, because
Yeah.
it's just so fundamental, right? There's a reason why the NIST CSF is those 5 functions. And when you spend all your time on just protect or identify and protect, and you skip detect, respond, and then recover, which is a whole other ball of wax,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's so much trouble you're leaving yourself open to.
Yep. Yeah, and we do have, not to give the government too much crap, but the CISA and MITRE have a lot of good stuff. They've been pumping out a lot of good stuff. I love that list of 700 odd vulnerabilities. That
Commonly
they've
being
seen.
attacked. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, commonly exploited in a while. That's a great way to narrow down your vulnerability management list. To prioritize things. And I look forward to more stuff like that coming out. But yeah, you still need detection engineers in your environment to implement that. How do they get that list from CISA into your SIM? Like,
Mm-hmm.
is there anybody on your team that can do that in an automated and repeatable way? You need SIM developers or detection engineers or something.
SIM development, SOAR development, and now
Mm-hmm.
XDR development, right? We're to the point where we need to take action at the speed of automation. And that action, to me, uh, there's 1,000 different definitions of XDR out there. To me,
Yeah.
XDR is really about, I like to think about it as hitting the pause button. It's like the pause button on Amazon Prime. You're
Mm-hmm.
watching the movie and you go, wait, I've seen that actor before. I've
Oh, the
seen that
X-ray,
person before. Who
the
are
X-ray
they? I
function.
hit pause. Now I've got time to pull up X-ray and go, oh, and maybe I'll go to IMDb and look them up a little bit more, and maybe I'll figure out, do I have them on DVD over here? Okay, great, and I can solve that problem, and then I can go back to watching the movie, right? So it's that pause button to say the bad thing was happening. We use the automation to pause that bad thing. Now let's get a person in here to clean up. Let's get a person in here to fix it now that we've stopped it. And that to me is what XDR is, and XDR as a service is going to have to be a lot of that, right? It's going to have to be far more. But Adrian, how does anybody all by themselves, whatever, figure out the API to connect to their multi-factor authentication solution to lock people's accounts out, and then the API to Amazon Web Services, and then the API to their EDR provider, and then the API to their firewalls, and then, I mean, holy
Yeah.
cow! I'll go back to my erector set analogy, your
Yeah.
kitchen utensil analogy, and holy cow, we need some good chefs. A
Yeah.
lot of them.
Yeah. Go
A
ahead,
lot
Jim.
of the times, these companies, they know that they need the talent, but they don't pay the talent like appropriately, so they'll know that they need exactly what you stated, right? And then
Mm-hmm.
they'll be like, "Oh, 105,000 is more than enough for this role." It's like that guy made 105,000 10 years ago.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And by the way, now we're adding to it 105,000. And oh, by the way, now that COVID is gone ish, you have to come back into our office and spend your own money on a commute and 2 hours a day commuting and
Yeah.
right? No wonder people leave InfoSec in droves. I really think we're in a place where we're so missing the boat on trying to grow our own talent. There's so much pressure in InfoSec that you have to hire, I
Yeah.
like to call it fully ripe fruit, right? Fruit that's ready to eat right off the tree. Those are the people you have to hire, as opposed to maybe picking that apple a little early and letting it ripen on the countertop, and
Yeah.
training that person up. And you know what? You can pay them a little less to start if you bring them in and you train them. It's not like there aren't entry level tasks in InfoSec. There are plenty of them. And start training them up and start helping them grow a career. Might you lose some of them? Sure. But you've got a pipeline then of people that you're growing to help replace them
Well,
if they do
and it's
move
kind of a
on.
mindset. You're not losing them; you're developing them. Of course, they're going to move on. Like this isn't the
Right.
'50s, and we're not IBM.
Where's my
Yeah,
pension? Oh, sorry.
they're gonna leave the company, and go get different experience, pick up different skills elsewhere. And if you operate like that, like there's so many companies where you can't even talk about leaving. Like it needs to be this whole hush hush, like oh, why aren't you available at 2 p.m.? Are you interviewing somewhere? It's this whole,
let me see your calendar.
It's this whole ridiculous thing where everybody has to pretend like, oh no, I'd never leave.
I'm a lifer until I'm not. Right.
For
exactly.
more money somewhere else. And we just need to shift that. And everybody wants cheap experts. Nobody wants to build a talent pipeline.
And I've only been one place that actually developed a talent pipeline, and everywhere else just complained that they didn't have any talent. Like, guys, there's a way to do it. There's literally a way to do it.
You're not going to get them tomorrow.
Invest in your talent.
Yeah, it's a long game. It's a long game.
Absolutely. And the sooner we start doing it as an industry, the sooner we're going to solve for some of these problems.
Amen. And that's a great place to wrap up here. Bill, thanks so much for joining us on Enterprise Security Weekly today.
My pleasure, Joe, Adrian. Great talking to you today.
All right, make sure you visit securityweekly.com/deepwatch to learn more. And we'll be right back in a few moments with the Enterprise Weekly News.